In the quiet of the early morning, when the world is still and the heart is most open, there exists a space where reflection becomes sacred. In this stillness, Zen teaches that to be a good husband is not about grand gestures or achieving perfection. It is about presence, true presence. To be fully here now, with the one you love. Most relationships don't break suddenly. They erode slowly, like rocks softened over centuries by waves that never stop coming. And often, husbands do not see it coming, not because they do not care, but because they were not taught to listen with the heart. They were not taught to notice the subtle tremble in a partner's voice, the quiet withdrawal, the unspoken longing. A Zen approach begins with self-awareness, noticing when the mind races, when ego wants to defend instead of understand, when pride becomes louder than compassion. To be a Zen husband means to master silence, not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of deep listening. It means to meet anger with breath, not reaction. To recognize that control is not love, and that to love someone is not to shape them, but to honor who they are, even as they change. Zen teaches that love is not possession. It is attention. The first thing a husband must learn is to return again and again to the present moment, to see his partner not as a fixed image from the past, but as a living, breathing being, evolving day by day. He must learn the power of small, conscious acts, making tea not as a duty, but as a ritual of care, offering a warm hand, not as a gesture of guilt, but as a silent poem that says, "I see you." He must also confront his own suffering, not to suppress it, but to embrace it with gentleness. Because when a man hides from his own pain, he becomes unavailable to others. The Zen path asks, can you sit with your own discomfort long enough to not run from hers? Can you breathe through the impulse to fix and instead simply hold space? These are not easy tasks. They are the work of a lifetime. But if practiced daily, they become the very soil in which lasting love grows. A husband must learn to apologize, not as an act of submission, but as an offering of humility. Zen shows that the strongest tree is not the one that never bends, but the one that moves with the wind. Rigidity breaks, gentleness endures. He must unlearn the belief that love means being right. In truth, love often means being quiet enough to let someone else be heard. And in this space of listening, true healing can begin. Forgiveness becomes possible. Understanding blooms. The wounds that once felt permanent begin to soften. And the heart, once guarded, begins to open again. In every relationship, there are moments where one must decide, do I armor up or do I lean in? The Zen husband chooses to lean in, again and again, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. Because he knows that love is not sustained by ease. It is deepened through struggle, made sacred by attention, and held together by the willingness to show up fully every single day. In the stillness of honest reflection, there comes a moment in every man's life when he must face the mirror of his own presence, not just the reflection of his face, but the truth of his actions, inactions, tone, and silence, all woven together like breath and shadow. The teachings of Zen invite him to let go of the noise and lean into stillness, for there he begins to learn. A husband who wishes to love deeply, to preserve not just the surface of a relationship, but its soul, must first learn the discipline of awareness, not the shallow scanning of her mood or the superficial nodding to her words, but the deep listening that hears beneath the silence, beneath the frustration, into the pulse of her being. Zen teaches that presence is not measured in minutes, but in moments of complete attention, where one becomes empty enough to truly hold space for another. He must learn that fixing is not always helping, that rushing to resolve what she feels may be an attempt to silence her discomfort because it triggers his own. Zen whispers, sit with it. Sit with her pain, her fear, her longing, not to change it, but to honor it with stillness. A relationship cracks when attention disappears and grows when attention is steady and silent, like the patient watching of a candle's flame. A husband must also learn emotional humility, the grace to accept that being wrong does not make him less whole, but more open, more teachable. When she says, "You hurt me," it is not an attack, but an invitation to see a wound he may not even know he caused. The Zen way is not to defend but to bow, not to argue, but to breathe and say, "Tell me more." This is not weakness. It is the fierce strength of one who values connection over being right. The ego shouts to protect itself. The heart bows to understand. Zen teaches that no relationship survives if one or both become habitual ghosts, there but not truly alive to each other. A husband must bring aliveness back, not with grand gestures, but with sacred simplicity. The small touch, the eye contact that lingers, the question not about her schedule, but her soul. Zen tells us when washing the bowl, just wash the bowl. So when loving her, just love her, not while checking a screen, not while planning the next task. Love her like the breath, fully, presently, quietly. And when the inevitable tension rises, as it always does in the flow of two lives, trying to move together, he must learn to pause before reacting. Reactivity is the child of fear. Response is the fruit of mindfulness. If he can stop, breathe, and choose his words with care, he will break the cycle that so many couples spin in. Wound, blame, defend, repeat. Zen offers the breath as the first doorway out. Inhale slowly. Feel the rising urge to strike with words or retreat into silence, and let it pass like a cloud across the sky. Return to presence, again and again. The path of a husband in Zen is not one of perfection, but of return. Return to awareness, to compassion, to the soft voice of intention that says, "I am here to love, not control. I am here to listen, not dominate. I am here to grow with you, not outpace you." In this spirit, he must release the ancient burden many men carry, that to feel is to be weak. Zen masters have wept. Warriors have fallen to their knees in surrender to what they had avoided feeling their whole lives. To feel fully is to love fully. To weep is not to collapse, but to clean the soul. If he holds in his sorrow, his fear, his regret, they will harden him. If he learns to share them with her, not as demands for her comfort, but as windows into his own vulnerability, the space between them grows safer. Love cannot thrive in armor. He must take it off, piece by piece. He must also learn the discipline of appreciation, not as a chore, not as performance, but as genuine presence to the miracle of her being. Every day she wakes up next to him is a gift not to be assumed. Gratitude in Zen is not just a feeling, it is a practice. Say thank you for the way she cares, for the way she tries, for the way she still reaches, even when she is tired. Gratitude opens the heart. And when conflict comes, as it always does in long love, he must practice the art of returning, not with shame, not with self-loathing, but with humility. Zen teaches that mistakes are inevitable. What matters is whether we learn. Do not retreat from her when you stumble. Walk back gently. Admit your fault. Hold her hand. Start again. Every argument is a chance for renewal if you enter it with love and leave it with wisdom. Let silence not be punishment, but space. Let distance not be abandonment, but time to soften. Then come back, not only with flowers or apologies, but with changed presence. Let your actions say, I am learning you, even now, especially now. And finally, perhaps most critically, he must learn to love himself, not as a precondition to love her, but as the ground from which love becomes sustainable. Zen teaches that self-hatred cannot grow compassion, that neglecting the inner life eventually poisons the outer one. So take time to sit in stillness, reflect, care for the body, feed the soul. The more peace he cultivates within, the less he will unconsciously seek to offload his pain onto her. The more kindness he shows himself, the less he will criticize her to feel powerful. A husband in Zen becomes a sanctuary, not because he is perfect, but because he is present. Not because he controls the chaos, but because he is calm within it. And through this presence, through this daily devotion to awareness, love softens, deepens, and expands. Let each breath be a vow. Let each day be a choice. Let each mistake be a lesson. Let love become less a performance and more a path. And walk that path with humility, with care, with awareness, and with the quiet knowing that it is never too late to become the husband your relationship always needed. And as the journey deepens, the husband who truly seeks not only to save the relationship, but to elevate it into something sacred, must begin to look beyond the mechanics of being a partner and into the stillness of simply being. He must embrace the truth that the health of a relationship is not built solely on what he does, but how he shows up. Zen reminds us that being is more powerful than doing when presence is infused with compassion. He must slow down, not just physically, but spiritually, so he can finally hear what was always being said between the words. When she sighs, when she turns away, when she hesitates before speaking, there is a world behind her silence. It is not a void to be feared, but a space to be honored. This is what Zen teaches, that within silence is understanding, and within understanding, the bridge to intimacy. He must no longer take it personally when she expresses pain. He must instead listen, without the shield of shame. To listen without taking offense is to love without ego. And the ego, Zen says, is the wall we build when we are afraid of being soft. A husband must unlearn the myth that leadership in love is about being strong in the way the world defines strength. Instead, he must be strong enough to sit in uncertainty, to admit he doesn't always know the way, to ask, how can I do better? This willingness is not weakness, it is spiritual courage. And when disagreements arise, as they must in all human connections, he must no longer fight to win, but to understand. Zen tells us that the goal of conflict is not victory, but connection. So rather than raise his voice, he must learn to raise his awareness. Rather than retreat into silence as punishment, he must learn to create silence as space for calm reflection. When he is triggered, let him feel the flame, but breathe before acting. When she is upset, let him meet her with curiosity, not criticism. Let him remember that love is not proved by never arguing, but by arguing with care. Let his words be measured, not as a control tactic, but as a spiritual discipline. Zen calls us to mindful speech. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? These questions become his compass. In them, he transforms. And in those quiet moments of disconnection, the long silences, the distance in bed, the tension that goes unspoken, he must become brave enough to speak gently, to say, I miss you, even if it's met with silence, to say I'm here, even when she seems far. Zen reminds us, just because the flower has not bloomed, does not mean the gardener should abandon the garden. Stay, tend, water with patience. And if she cries, Do not rush to fix it. Do not call her too sensitive. Sit with her. Let your presence be the soil where her feelings are safe. The world may call this softness weakness, but Zen knows it takes a warrior's heart to stay open when it hurts. A husband must also examine his habits, his distractions, his escapism. What does he turn to when intimacy becomes hard? Is it the phone, the bottle, the news, the gym? Even noble pursuits become avoidance when used to flee connection. Zen says, come back. Come back to the moment. Come back to her eyes. Come back to this breath. Presence is the doorway to intimacy. And even in moments of joy, especially then, he must remember to linger. Celebrate not with lavishness, but with sincerity. Let her feel seen, not just on anniversaries, but on ordinary Tuesdays. A kind note, a curious question, a look of admiration. Zen reminds us that love thrives in awareness, and awareness requires the discipline of slowing down. He must learn to let go of the fantasy of what the relationship should be, and love it as it is. Love her as she is. Zen tells us that grasping is suffering. Holding too tightly to an ideal strangles what is living. Release the fantasy, and the truth can finally breathe. And perhaps most critically, a husband must grow into emotional maturity, not by denying feeling, but by refining it. When he feels envy, let him explore its root. When he feels anger, let him investigate its fear. When he feels shame, let him cradle it with compassion. A man at peace with his own depths will not drown others in them. Zen practice, meditation, stillness, inquiry, can become his anchor, not as an escape, but as a return. And from this centered place, he can offer love that is grounded, enduring, and free. Let him honor her growth, even when it challenges his comfort. Let him bless her independence, even when it stretches his own identity. Let him love without ownership. Let him give without keeping score. Let him cherish, not control. A relationship that lasts is not one that avoids storms, but one in which both partners learn to become the calm. And if the relationship does end, as some must, let him walk away not with bitterness, but with blessing. Let him release her not as failure, but as fulfillment of a path walked with honesty. Zen teaches us that to love without clinging is the highest form of love. And if they stay, let them stay as two whole beings, not fused into one, but walking side by side in chosen awareness. In the end, what a husband must learn is that the true work is not to change her, not even to save the relationship, but to change himself in the ways that open his heart, cleanse his perception, and deepen his presence. From there, love becomes less a negotiation and more a quiet miracle, unfolding with each mindful step. Breathe, listen, bow, begin again. If this message brought you calm, this space is always here for you. Subscribe, return, and walk this quiet path with us, one breath at a time. Until next time, remember, you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way.